everybody, and welcome to Epic Every Day, our weekday podcast for busy, overwhelmed Christians who don't want to live in the insanity and instead want to live in freedom and abundance and peace. I'm Liz Frericks, and this is my husband, Evan.
Hi.
And we're so glad you guys are here with us on this lovely Friday morning.
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody's favorite day of the week.
And this Friday is extra special.
Yes, it's our 100th episode.
Woo! We did it.
Pretty excited about that.
Nope, we're going to keep going.
We're just trying to fail fast.
So maybe after this, the show will get good.
If you guys have any suggestions about topics you'd like to hear or anything that you're like, oh, you know, it would be really good if you just didn't talk about whatever.
Yeah, let us know.
We'd love to hear it.
Send us a tweet. You can go in our Facebook group, or you can make a comment on our webpage.
So today we are going to keep talking about the new year and talk about being complete. Being complete is being fully present in this moment rather than being stuck in the past or worried about the future, and engaging with what is actually happening around you and using your whole self to do it.
Yeah. And today we're going to talk about some reasons to not set goals.
One of the things that comes up at New Year's is that as we're setting goals and going into 2018, sometimes we don't let go of 2017. It's just that, like, at least for me, I know I tend to do this. I struggle with this even on just a day-to-day basis. I say, I'm so far behind. You know, instead of looking at this is where I am right now and this is where I'm starting from, I'm like, oh, I should be starting from here. But I'm actually, like, I'm so far behind and I'm in the hole, you know. And the same way with when we're switching years, sometimes I think coming out of the holiday stress and everybody's sick in the fall. And
Right.
And so then sometimes we're just so already stressed that we just carry that in.
Yeah,
and so, yeah.
Not ready for the new year yet. It's like, well, I've got another month of work to do left from 2017.
Right, yeah. We kind of are like, oh, I didn't get these goals done that were my goals for this year. And it's kind of hard to even set goals sometimes for the next year when you feel like you didn't do well with the previous year. Yeah. And then I think however our previous year was, sometimes we are like, oh, that's how this year is going to go.
Right.
You know? Yeah,
I think I get bogged down sometime in the, like, well, what goals am I even supposed to be setting? You know, like,
yeah.
Am I going to make goals about what, like my health this year?
Connection.
Yeah, connection, like we talked about yesterday. Some personal development thing. Like, am I going to learn a new skill this year? Like, it's almost, you know, a fresh new year. It's like a blank slate, and sometimes that can be a little crippling too. Where it's like, what?
Yeah.
Which direction do I go?
Right. Well, and I think it's hard sometimes that engaging with what actually is part, because we all have whatever colored glasses, whether they're rose-colored glasses or green-colored glasses or...
What we're really doing there, I think, is getting into the worry...
worry-regret spectrum.
Worry-regret, yeah. We're either got one foot stuck in the muck back in last year and we won't let it go. And we really just need to pull our foot out of that boot and leave it.
Yeah, seriously.
Or
like,
we're
looking
ahead and we're just like frozen by, I mean, an abundance of opportunity, really, which,
yeah.
I mean, sometimes freedom, especially in God's world, has to do with limiting our choices so that we can thrive, you know.
Right.
But if we, you know, we talked about some of that on Wednesday. I mean, that process of going through what your values are and what your mission is, that's weeding out the stuff that you don't have to make goals about so that you can hyper-focus.
Right. Yeah. But I think sometimes we kind of have that, I don't know, I think we talked about this on Wednesday too. We're like the horse that's tied to the chair.
Yeah.
You know, we have this mindset that, oh, I can never grow in XYZ area. And I think I've shared with you guys before how this past year we totally revamped our finances. And it was because I was doing a Bible study and I was like, oh my gosh, I just listed my finances as one of my top stressors. And it's been 10 years since I've done this study. And so it was like, oh no, I can't have not grown in 10 years. And it was like, well, here's why. We've never focused on it. We've never tried to really change what we're doing. So we had to.
In that case, yeah, we were turning the blind eye to the finance. And we're like, well, we're not going to do that. And then it never got done.
Right. Well, but a big part of the reason it never got done is because it was such a huge stressor for me that it was like my brain just shut down, you know? I had to do a bunch of tapping before I even could just be like, oh, it's possible to have a budget, you know?
Right. And it was work getting through the year. I mean, we had a money meeting every week. I mean, we might have missed 4 maybe all year.
Yeah.
It was a lot of work. So, yeah,
it was like a 10-minute meeting. It wasn't that bad.
I mean, but just, why are you saying it was easy?
Well, for me, once we did, it wasn't as much work as I thought it would be. Like, I just had such a mental block around it. I was like, this is going to be so stressful.
So it was more of a relief.
Right. And then it was like, oh, this isn't that bad. But it wasn't until I actually drained the emotional compound interest from it that I was able to see it more clearly and to make, actual choices related to the area with what was actually happening versus just being stuck in that worry regret spectrum.
I think that's why we advocate for the self-examined life, is because it's hard. Sometimes we don't want to examine, like, why don't I want to worry about my budget? Well, I don't even want to worry about why I don't want to worry about it. Don't bother me with that.
Right.
But it's so fruitful to get in there and do some exploring.
Right. And it's so freeing. I mean, once I did the work to be like, okay, I'm going to tap on this. I'm going to work through my issues as far as money goes. Then it was like, oh, wow, this is so much less stress than I thought it was. And we're actually making progress,
Right. And it's not something you just decided to get better about. You got help.
I was like, yeah, it is. I was like, hey, we need to work on this year.
Right. But you weren't just like, oh, okay, this has been a problem for 10 years. Snap my fingers, now it's fine.
Right.
I think that's one of our hangups too, as people. I mean, you and I too, is to ask for the help that we need to get going in the places we know are stuck.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I need to do something. All right. There's, 2 classes that came, and the Lord totally just brought them into my life because I was like, I don't know what to do. Can you please tell me? And took those 2 classes, and it was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow. This makes so much sense. This is so much easier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it could be a class. It could be, if we're going to stick with the finance example, if it's someone who you feel like handles money well that you could just ask them how they do it. I mean, it might feel a little uncomfortable, but
I actually had that conversation with a couple people this year, being like, so how do you do your budget?
Sure. I think we don't talk about it enough, and it's just adding and subtracting. I think we feel self-conscious about it. We don't want to feel like we're poorer than all of our friends, or that we're richer than our friends. Or I don't know what it is. We don't want to know. But I think it's fruitful.
Yeah, it was a good conversation.
Yeah.
It's always interesting, I think, finding out what people value. Because when they talk about what they budget for, sometimes it's like, oh.
Sure.
Like, one of the things that came up with a few people was that they don't really have a health budget. Their supplements are part of their groceries budget. And I was like, yeah, that would never fly for us. Because it would make our grocery budget so insane. And
right. It just depends on what kind of granularity you want.
Well, I know.
But it does
it's just that, like we have a big supplements budget because health is so important to us and because I have an autoimmune disease. So we really can't just ignore it. But it was interesting talking to other people and being like, oh, this is not on their radar at all. They don't really think about their health.
It is. Yeah. How much more better would we know our friends if we could look at their checkbook all the time, Because that's our priorities there, the things we spend our money on.
Yeah, totally. So, dragging this back to being complete in the new year and out of money. I was, one of the things that I wrote down as part of the, what is actually happening in my life is to do an evaluation. which I talked about on Wednesday, I think it was. That's something that I like to do every year. I have, like 10 or 12 different areas of my life that every year I just write down the problems, the benefits, what's going well, what's not going well. And it kind of forces me to really, when I ask myself, what are the problems in this area? And that's actually something that I started just 2 years ago, because after recognizing that finances had been a problem for 10 years and I hadn't even realized it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta keep track of this, because otherwise I'm gonna never grow. I'm just gonna be like, oh, yep, still a problem.
Yeah.
Because we just get so busy with our lives and so focused on short-term stuff that we don't even recognize, like, oh, this has been a problem for a long time.
Somehow, the time marches on and you're like,
decades.
What happened? What?
Yes.
Yeah. That happened 5 years ago?
Right.
Yeah, that happens too much.
Yeah, so we need to have that regular evaluation of our lives to be like, oh yeah, what's actually happening? Oh, that's actually been a problem for this long.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's intimidating to anybody that just, because again, I've mentioned it a couple times this week, just looking at the sheer amount of work that getting our life organized takes, that's a big turnoff to me sometimes. But there's a million systems out there. You don't have to do exactly like we do it. But,
right.
But so don't let that stop you to even try to do something,
Right.
Because I think that's, looking ahead of the year, like I said earlier in today's show, and like that can feel paralyzing sometimes to be like, oh, I've got to start writing everything down. And it's like, well, no, let's just do one or two things.
Right.
See what's important.
Yeah, definitely.
Pray about it.
And it doesn't really take that long. If you want to do everything all at once, you can do, like a retreat day, and that would totally give you time. But if you don't want to take that much time, when I do my analysis for my year, when I write everything down, I write down like 2 areas every morning for 6 days.
Okay.
It's not like I can sit down and do it all at once, because I don't have that kind of time. Right. But, I could have that kind of time if I made it. But
I guess, it takes little pieces of intentionality.
Right. Yeah. It's the 1% improvement stuff. Yeah. That's what makes a difference. It's not being like, all right, I'm going to totally overhaul my year and I'm going to put all this work into it. And then you're worn out and you never actually do any of your awesome goals that you set. Mm-hmm. When you take our quiz, there's a question at the end about where you want to grow this next year. If you answer it, that will give us some information about what kind of classes we want to offer.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of accountability right there. And it's not much, but it's a little bit. And some people, that's a toe on the path. So we'd encourage you to do that.
Yeah, and be now. You're starting where you're starting. You don't have to carry the baggage of last year. You can just be now. Now is a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that. I love that when I'm meditating, or I've been working on trying to bring that meditation attitude into other areas of my life, where it's like I love meditating or doing my heart rate monitoring in the morning, because I don't have to do anything else. I'm just there. It's the only thing I got to do right then.
Yeah.
And so nice. Trying to be like, okay, right now we're recording this episode. We don't have to do anything else. That's it. There's just such a peace and such room to breathe in that nowness.
Yeah, and a strong sense of purpose. We know what we're doing right now, and we're doing it 100%.
Yep, totally.
That is a nice feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And we can, that's that moment-by-moment intentionality. We can build up to feeling like that most of the time if we're intentional.
Yeah. Yeah, 1% improvement.
Yep.
All right, we love you guys, and we are praying for you. We will talk to you guys next week. Yeah. Have an awesome weekend.
See you later.